Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Dr. Shamim Nazir. I'm an ER physician and now a real estate investor. Today, we are going to meet with Aaron Levy. He is the CEO and founder of Townbridge, which is a land development company. And he has another company called Casata, which builds modular homes for workforce housing. Sometimes my friends or colleagues will ask me about buying land. Investing in land can certainly be very lucrative, but it can also be very risky. So it's very important to understand the details and nuances of what happens during land development and how long it really takes and how much risk the developer is taking when they identify and decide to develop a piece of land. So let's hear from Aaron as he tells us his
Hi,
process.
I'm Aaron Levy. I'm the CEO at Townbridge. We're on our site here in San Marcos, Texas. What you're looking at right now is one of our projects. This is for build for rent townhomes. The site will have 36 townhomes on it when it's complete. Right now, we're in the land improvement phase. A lot of our wet utility is going in, our wastewater lines, water lines, and then we'll get to the storm pipe shortly after that. We spent a year and a half plus almost 2 years working on getting all of our permits, entitlements, getting our zoning approval, our infrastructure plan approval. We've got our architectural design, and now we're actually in the construction phase. So it takes about 9 to 12 months, varying, to get this phase of portion of improvement just on this site is about $1,300,000, $1,400,000, which would get us to the point of build ready. Soft cost civil design, architectural design, assessments, as I pointed out before as well, permitting, fees to the city. So there's a long path to get there. Once we get there, we're now in a place to then open up the capital opportunity of investment for the vertical construction.
So welcome, Aaron.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about your journey.
Absolutely. Little background on myself. I actually started in the design side of things in the architectural world, and I had always wanted to get involved in the built environment. And I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to partner with my father-in-law, who was a builder of over 40 years, who also was partnered with his father-in-law, building since the 60s and doing single family merchant built developments, so homes for sale, primarily in New York City, where Staten Island had first opened with the Verrazano Bridge, a lot of influx there. So they were doing a lot of development. Had moved into opportunities in Florida and Texas as well until the oil crisis in the 80s, and then they steered their focus back to the East Coast. I brought the company back to Texas about 15, 16 years ago. And in Austin, we were doing primarily infill construction. So a lot of niche communities, all single family, all for sale product as well. And as we were doing these, we were also retaining units off every project to build out a single family rental portfolio. So this went on for about 10 years. And over that, an evolution in this realization of maybe we need to steer the company in a direction where we're doing more commercial, master planning, larger size development, carve out with this build for rent solution with the intention of building for rent products, and then also have the scale where we can deliver lots, finished lots for national home builders, commercial lots for commercial developers, for multifamily developers, while at the same time designing in a way that all of these uses work cohesively together. So we've been doing that for about the past 5, 6 years, primarily in Austin MSA, and now focus more in the overall triangle of Texas, everywhere from San Antonio, Austin, up to DFW, and across through down to Houston. And our two primary products that we do a build for rent townhome, single family attached product. And then we also have a detached multifamily product that we call Casata, which are micro homes that we manufacture, and we build communities where they are detached one-story units, all separate, but operates like a multifamily. So you're getting the best of both experiences. And that is the most of what we do. As a developer, we're always working on a pipeline, building out pipeline, because you really have to keep momentum too. Every project has to have momentum, and we also have to have a momentum in what it is that we're working on.
Very interesting. Yeah, that pipeline is so important. Some people come to me and, because I'm the doctor investor, like friends or colleagues will say, "Hey, Shamim, what about land? Should I go out and buy land?" And I usually say, "No, you should not buy land." How do you figure out where to buy land?
Yeah, there's a lot of factors that go into that. And to your point, real estate is a great investment opportunity because it is a real asset, right? You're actually investing something that is tangible, that can have a multitude of use potentially, and that people engage with on a daily basis for whatever those uses are, residential, commercial, etc. And to your point, no, land is very challenging. And we have a specific offering that helps fund us along with our own capital, but in that process of an acquisition of a property to the point of its development, because that is actually one of the most challenging phases of development. And there's some very important hurdles that you have to overcome to even get to the point to be able to construct a project. A lot of people think development is just the building of it, getting through all the zoning and regulatory items that actually facilitate the ability to do so. It's the planning of it, the underwriting and the financial understanding of is this going to even be viable in the market? Um, and and then ultimately, what's the vision behind this as well? And are you somebody that has that kind of vision, or is that vision as applicable as you think it is on a mass scale and to the broader market? So that is going. Your question was sorry about how we do land selection. All of those factors come into play, and we are really trying to steer clear, and I have a very clear focus of our product being for the workforce and the middle market. There's such a need for attainability in living, and that just applies everywhere. It doesn't matter where you live at this point, unfortunately, but that is the truth. So, and the reason why we pivoted into the build for rent space was we were seeing that trend happening over the past 15 years, as I said. And that's ultimately why we shifted fully into focusing on those build for rent solutions. Usually it's driven by demographic, employment in the area, where are the gaps as far as housing product and need, who is not being served, or is our product going to serve those residents appropriately? And and then you get into civil feasibility, is there utility access, and the site itself and the constraints, which there's many layers to that. And doing the feasibility and diligence to make those selections can sometimes be costly, and it does require a lot of experience to make sure you're not just throwing your capital into what could become a dead opportunity.
Yeah. So tell us about how long does that take for you to go from spotting the land and then taking it through that process?
It varies. And, the initial phase, and things have shifted over the last few years, but even the initial phase of the acquisition, the buying of the property itself, can take 6, 9, 12 months, depending on your contract, obviously. But getting the right information from your engineers, from the jurisdictions, um, and then say you get through that point, some projects could take 2 or even 3 years to get to the actual permit itself. A lot of that is going to be driven by the obstacles that you face in the jurisdictions that you're, running your application through. And even when you think things are going smoothly, they love to surprise you. It never without fail that there's some misunderstanding within the jurisdiction, because we're dealing with humans, right? I mean, it's all human engagement. And there's always opportunity for one reviewer to misunderstand something or start pulling you in a direction that's actually not the appropriate solution. So you have to kind of keep it on the rails in that regard as well. So yeah, from the identification of an opportunity to the point of its permit could be 2 to even 3 years.
Can you outline it for us, like the steps,
Yeah.
define?
Yeah. So, as we were just talking about, there's the acquisition phase and moving it through the entitlements, getting those permissions to do everything as planned, then getting into the detail of the design itself and getting those designs reviewed and approved to the points of their permit approval for construction. And that could be civil improvements, meaning all your land improvements, horizontal work, utilities, etc., as well as then your vertical permits for whatever you're actually building, the structures, ultimately getting yourself through the construction phase. And depending on the scope of the construction, and the size of the project, that could be several years, within itself. A lot of build for rent, once you get to a scale of a few hundred units or more, it's going to take 24 to 36 months to build it out. You're going to have a lease up period. You're going to have a marketing period before you start leasing up if it's a rent solution. And then you've got your absorption period of trying to fill this thing and stabilize it with tenants. And that could take another year or more, depending on the market conditions. So once you start adding up all those timelines, like if it's 2 to sometimes 3, but more like 2 years of like, you identify, you purchase, you entitle, you design, you permit, then you go and construct it, and that's 2 to 2.5 to 3 years depending on the size. So now you're at 4.5 years, a stabilization, getting it fully leased up, another year. So now you're at 5 to 6 years total, and you're looking at your exit at that point. I mean, you want to have some running period of stabilized asset with a trailing period behind it. So like you might want to sit on that for 2 years or 3 years to get to the right sweet spot of when is the right time to sell. A lot of that is based on cap rates and those types of calculations. What NOI are you receiving from your operating property? And there's always a space in time where the return and the risk profile and all those things start to align, and you identify like this is the most opportune time for that exit.
Yeah. So you have to be a very patient man to
You
be
have
a
to be very
developer.
patient, and you also have to be very flexible. And it's constant change. Everything is changing at every moment. And that's life too, right? Like life is change. That's the reality. So, we're very agile when it comes to understanding that, the city might tell you they have enough wastewater service to provide you, and then 10 months later say, sorry, we messed up. No, we don't. Now you got to figure this out. You're deep in a project, that you got to find the solutions going on.
So, from your perspective, since you're on that side of the fence, what should a limited partner like myself be looking for when they're considering investing in a land development project?
A lot of it has to do with personal appetite. Every investment has some risk, right? So, what levels of risks are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with a placement on a project that is going to take 5, 6 years to exit, that you're not going to see any type of return until that point in time? Or are you looking for like a cash flowing solution? So, all of those things are, first thing to consider is what's your personal appetite, right? And then, when you're thinking about who you're investing with, it's understanding their track record. It's getting a sense of their capacity and capabilities to execute on, the things that they present. It's looking at that. It's getting a level of trust at some point. I mean, you have to understand and get comfortable with who and what you're investing in.
Yeah.
Any investment, it doesn't matter how small or how big it is, an investment speaks very strongly to somebody's willingness to put trust and faith in something, and we certainly don't take that lightly. So we are never pressuring any potential interested investor. We're giving everyone the time and space to get to their level of comfort, do the amount of homework they need to do, speak to their CPA and attorneys and various people on our team or our compliance team in the relations side of things to understand it better. And we provide as much material as we are allowed to under compliance regulation that we can share that helps support or provide additional trust and insight.
And then tell us a little bit about Casata. What is that about?
Yeah, so that was something we created. It was really kind of birthed out during the COVID period because we were thinking about, well, what's a new living solution? Create a little bit more of a sense of security, isolation, in the sense of just separation of space, that people can live in a multifamily type experience without shared walls or corridors or stairs. As a developer, being focused in sustainability and like what are ways we can minimize our impact as well as lower waste factors, as well as speed up the overall process that we just talked about. If it takes 24 to 36 months to build something, how can we speed that up? So we're utilizing modular construction where the homes are built turnkey in factories offsite we are able to then build all of our horizontal and civil improvements simultaneously. So when we've taken these two timelines and rather than being sequential right behind each other, we can actually start to overlap them. We can compress our development timeline. We can minimize our impact at the same time. We can deliver a product and a living experience that people have that we've learned and seen through now 2.5 going on 3 years of operation in our Austin site, that there's a different sense of pride of ownership and sense of community, that people connect because they get to sit on their front porch rather than on their balcony or in their backyard, and they walk to all these opportunities in the community. So then people are engaging with each other in ways that now they start to want to form community differently. So that's the gist of it. It was unexpected, and what we've discovered is that it's also a great solution for workforce housing to make it more attainable for living experience. So we're able to price these homes at the same way that you would rent in a garden style apartment, where you're walking up 2 to 3 flights of stairs and you're parking, out in the parking lot. You now have a home living experience at the same price. We've got several communities. Well, Austin has been in operation, San Marcos under construction. We've got a few more that are in that pre-development phase that we were talking about before, that will get started next year. And then we're looking at and have been in discussions with where we can find other places that need these solutions. And it's really everywhere, but looking into the Carolinas, parts of the Sun Belt, and then all the way across over towards Nevada as well.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I like that product. I'm very
Yeah.
curious to take a tour of that one day.
Yeah, it's pretty, and I can speak to it as an architect, which is partly why I, found this to be so fascinating. It's like when you separate the units from each other and now you have windows on every side of the structure, even though you've made that overall a more efficient but smaller footprint and total square foot compared to that apartment per se, it feels bigger because you're getting this sense of space and light and connection to the outdoor in ways that you can't get that in an apartment. And all of a sudden, something that is 600 square feet feels like that 850 square foot apartment, and you don't have anyone above you or attached to you. So,
Yeah, and you don't have to bear with the noise and the
yeah.
different things that happen. So, very cool. I'm very excited about that. I want to definitely take a tour of that once you get your community built nearby, hopefully,
Awesome.
where
Yeah.
we can drive out. Yeah. Well, I think that's great for today. I hope you'll come back and tell us more about your projects and how they're going
Yeah, would be happy
and
to.
continue to
Thanks for your
educate our
time.
community.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Sure, you're welcome.